Hey guys, Joe Miles here with ASIO Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
Welcome back, guys. Mission Whitetail, episode 44. Got Lucas here with me today. Gonna chime in with any questions. Gonna start off, guys. This is gonna be a little bit probably shorter podcast today, and simply because we are wrapping up our Black Friday sale at ASIO, and Thanksgiving was last week, and I've got a lot to be thankful for. The Black Friday sale, I mean, more than I ever dreamed. I mean, it was absolutely insane. I mean, we blew our goal out of the water for the month of November. We're not even done with the month of November yet. And just so thankful. I know a lot of guys that listen to the Mission Whitetail podcast are supporters of ASIO and run the gear and like the gear. And just amazing to me that something can go from an idea, you know, in the woods on something that I'm so passionate about, you know, whitetail bow hunting, and then get it started and have it come to where it's come now. I mean, we had our warehouse. We moved into a bigger warehouse this year, and literally you could not walk through there in August for all the inventory that was in there. And it's a big warehouse. Oh, yeah. And now it almost looks like a graveyard. I mean, it's pretty empty, and which is just unbelievable. And I just want to thank everybody that supports us and that has, you know, been part of the growth of ASIO. So thank you all for that. The podcast, because we've got so much work to do there at the office getting these orders out, Lucas and I are going to have to cut out a little early here and get back to the office and help the team. But a couple announcements to start with. My season so far has been pretty good. Got the deer early in South Carolina in velvet. Got the buck in Texas, that 161-inch crazy 8-pointer. That's really neat. And then Kentucky was first morning in. We hunted that afternoon. Then we got the 10-point coming through the funnel on the first morning in, so that was a great hunt. And then went to Kansas, had a little bit of a grind there, 7-8 days of hunting, and again another funnel hunt, and we killed a 160-inch 9-point at 4 steps. So looking forward to Lucas putting that footage together. We're going to get it all put together, and again shot him at 4 steps. And it's so funny, we did a season update, or maybe it was just a post while we were out there talking about shooting a buck with the first ethical shot that you get. And the shot on this buck at 4 yards is quartering to, or it's almost facing us. And he turns his head and gives me jugular, spine, junction of the shoulder, front side lung. And at 4 yards, I can just about put the arrow, you know, on a pinhead. And so I shot him exactly where I wanted to hit him, and I'm sure some people, the ethical shot police, are going to have some things to say about that, but the proof is in the pudding. I actually hit jugular, spine, shoulder junction, and lung with that arrow. I hit everything. And people are going to say, yeah, but what if you were an inch high or inch low? Well, you know, with this angle, if I had been an inch high or inch low, it would have hit one of them. It would have either hit the spine, it would either hit the jugular, it would either hit the shoulder junction, or it would have gotten into the lungs. So it was a devastating, lethal shot, and I took it because it was the first ethical shot that I'm comfortable with. So anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent there, but that's kind of where we are right now. I'm going to get into South Carolina stuff here in a little bit. I want to talk about where we're headed. Sunday, Lucas and I are headed to Mexico. Pre-rut will just be getting going down there, so it'll be like starting over again. You know, the rut in the Midwest is winding down, and The rut in South Carolina is super weird. You know, it gets going really the 1st of October, and, man, it'll run all the way to you still see bucks chasing and scrapes open in January. So it's a wild rut here. You know, we get deer coming out of spots in late July, and we've got deer in spots in September. So does are bred and fawns are born, you know, in really a 3-month period, whereas like in the Midwest and Canada, you know, they all drop within a couple weeks of each other, and here they drop within 3 months of each other. It's wild, but it, you know, it lends itself to some cool stuff. You get chasing and rut activity for a long period of time, and then you get pockets where there's nothing at all going on, and it's a typical late season thing. So it's South Carolina, you know, weird weather, weird rut behavior, but it's a fun state to hunt. And we're going to get into South Carolina hunting here in a minute. I just wanted to update guys with, you know, headed into Mexico, and we'll be down there this for the 3rd through the 8th of December, and then back again with kind of a family father-son trip. Lucas will be back on that one too. That's around the 16th or 17th of December. And that's one that I really look forward to. You know, Jack gets out of school, get to hunt with my son. I've got my college roommate and his whole family going. So going to kind of be a family affair down there, and that's always a lot of fun. And I love hunting that South Texas, Mexico in December. Wild, crazy rut, snort wheezing, grunting, you know, bucks running everywhere, fighting. I mean, you're going to see all of it.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a low pressure hunt. You can see a lot of deer. You see a lot of bucks. You know, it's not a grind. It's a real fun. Not that the other stuff is not fun. I enjoy the grind. I enjoy the trying to outwit deer and you know, figuring stuff out. And here it's more of a relaxed hunt. You know, hunting out of tower type stands. And I like it all. You know, from that I'll call that like a gentleman hunt. You know, where it's you drive out 20 minutes before daylight, you get into your stand, and the deer just flood in, and then, you know, you repeat the thing in the afternoon, and it's just relaxed and a lot of action, and a lot of fun, and it's wild whitetails, and it's a different style of hunting. And then you look at how we do things in the Midwest, you know, in the rut, and we're grinding, and, you know, 4 a.m. wake-up calls, staying up till 9, 10 o'clock at night, and, you know, freezing cold weather and wind blowing like crazy and deer disappearing on you, you know, all the drama that goes into that. And then the stuff here in South Carolina where the deer aren't super big, but, you know, they're cagey. They're smart. They're some of the smartest deer I've ever hunted, and they're a super challenge. So Mexico is next for us. Let's see. A big announcement at Mission Whitetail is Bobby Worthington and I are going to be putting on a course or seminar. And this is the first announcement of that. It's going to happen in March. And guys that don't know Bobby Worthington, he is a mentor to me. He and I have become good friends. We hunted in Kansas together this year. Over the last really year and a half, I met him through Don Higgins, and Bobby is probably the best woodsman I know that I've ever met, ever walked in the woods with. He came to Kentucky and spent some time with me, and you know, you hear about guys that are, you know, incredible at what they do, right? Yeah. And you never really know until you get out in the woods, and pretty quick you can see, you know, what's going on, if it's all theory or if it's actual, this guy's the real deal and been in the thick of things. Yeah. And Bobby is the real deal. His philosophy on hunting is it seems like really simple, but it's I guess he has simplified it, and it is a system of hunting. I've talked about, I'm not going to get into all that because we've talked about it on many other podcasts and had Bobby on. And guys, if you haven't listened to the 2 podcasts we've done with Bobby Worthington, I highly recommend going back. This is going to be a super limited course. Bobby's getting a little older. He's pushing 70. But guys, if you ever wanted to elevate your knowledge and you're open-minded and you do any rut funnel, or you want to understand how to hunt the rut, you struggle with the rut, you hunt in hill country, we're going to be up at his place, his stomping grounds. It's going to be a 2-day course. Get in the evening before, have dinner, kind of a powwow, and then two days, 1 half day in a classroom going through how Bobby does everything. And I'm going to be talking about some technical stuff and tactical stuff about bow setups and helping out as well. And then we're going to be in the field looking at Bobby's actual setups, where he's killed deer, where he has set up funnels, let guys go out and kind of let guys go through a block of woods and pick out the tree they would be in. And then Bobby's going to come in and say, this is where you need to set up. So it's going to be fixated or really focused on rut funnels, setting up your tree stand, how to set up your tree stand properly, how to properly put in mock scrapes in a funnel, how to access, how to get out of there, and that entire process. And it's going to be immersed in 2 days of just nonstop knowledge from Bobby Worthington. So, guys, if you're interested in that, we've opened it up. Really, this is the first mention of it, and we're going to open it to our Mission Whitetail listeners first, and then we'll open it up to the whole ASIO family. We'll get it into our ASIO buyers group, and I'm guessing the thing's going to fill up pretty much overnight once this hits the air. I think it's only going to be 10 or 12 guys. There was talks about maybe doing 2 of them back-to-back weekends. It will be on a weekend, so it'll be get in on Friday night and then do all day Saturday and then do all day Sunday until 5, and then we'll be out of there. And it will be in Pikeville, Kentucky, and it will be during the month of March. And there was talks about possibly doing maybe back-to-back weekends if we get a fest for, a lot of guys wanting to get involved with it. But I can't stress, if you want to really be around a legend in the sport of whitetail bow hunting, and somebody that's an 8-time world champion traditional shooter, and just see how he does things and his woodsmanship skills and his really 70 years of being in the hills and being in the whitetail world, this is an opportunity to do that. So, guys, if you're interested in it, want more information, email me at joe@asiogear.com, and I can get you the pricing and the dates, and we'll get you set up on that. So that's an update that we wanted to do. Let's see. The main things I wanted to talk about today: nocturnal bucks, relying on trail cameras too much, and late rut strategy. Those are the things I want to dive into, and those are complex, complicated topics that a ton of people, including me, battle every year.
Yep.
Nocturnal bucks. That's probably one of the biggest problems guys have. It's a problem that I have, and I get more messages on Facebook and Instagram about, hey, I've got this big deer. He's only coming through at night. A lot of it is bait pile. I'll get pictures of, deer, mature bucks coming to bait piles at 3 o'clock in the morning, and the guy's like, how do I kill him?
Yeah. That
might not be a nocturnal buck. That might be a buck that knows better than to coming into a bait pile, in daylight.
Yeah.
He, as a button buck, he saw his mom get shot. He's gone in another time and seen a 2-year-old get shot, and he's learned, I want to eat that stuff, but I ain't going in there at daylight.
Yep.
Bait pile hunting is a complex topic. We're not going to get into that today. It just, a lot of that goes on. We talk about the 3 C's, right? The cell cams, crossbows, and corn piles, CCC, and it's a legal way of hunting, and a lot of guys do that. And it's just a different style. We're not going to get into that. Let's focus on nocturnal bucks. And I want to dive into this deer that I'm hunting here in South Carolina right now. I've talked about him a few times, I think, on the podcast and certainly during the Mission Whitetail season update. This buck I've gotten one good daylight picture of him. I've gotten a couple pictures of him right at daylight. Mm-hmm. Like you can just see the sky breaking in the background. Maybe you could shoot then, and it was at a scrape. It was passing through some gobbler sawtooths, and that's it. I got one picture of him, 2 days ago at 8 a.m. And I was convinced that he was living in a giant cutover. And when I say cutover, I mean 5-year-old cutover that you'd have to wear Kevlar to walk through. It would rip your clothes off of you because of the briars.
Man.
And so that I had determined that's where he's living. Yep. I still think that. There's in the back of my mind, I think maybe he's living across the river and he's swimming onto this property and looking for does, and then he's leaving during the night. But in all the trail camera pictures I get of him, he's never wet. And I've got a lot of cameras along the river, and he's never wet. He's got muddy feet, but he's in the swamp, right? Yeah. So he's walking through ditches and through mud all day long, but his body's never wet. So, and I'll get pictures of him right at daylight or 30 minutes after dark, and if he was swimming across the river, he should still be wet.
Yeah.
I still think it may be possible. There may be a sandbar or something that he's coming across, and he's only getting wet from like his brisket down.
Yep.
So I'm convinced he's living in this cutover. History of the deer. Last year, got pictures of him. He was a lot more daylight. He would daylight on food. He would daylight on scrapes. I had been traveling a good bit, had been in Kansas and Texas and Mexico, and I'd got back in December, and my plan was to hunt him the second half of December. And he broke off a G2, and I decided not to hunt him anymore. And I got pictures of him after the season, and I said, okay, South Carolina, that's going to be my focus. Going to try to kill him in velvet early. Got all my cameras out in velvet. No pictures of him this year. So I didn't think he was around. Ended up shooting a nice 8-point in velvet.
Yep. And
like every year, when they come out of velvet, different bucks show up. And sure enough, sawtooth, there's a gobbler sawtooth kind of orchard, if you will, that's on this property. And those things, we didn't get a lot of them this year. They didn't make. I don't know if I need a tree expert to tell me this, but I don't know if they got a lot of moisture, too much moisture this year to make, or not enough moisture at the right time, but only a small handful of those sawtooths made this year, any crop at all, any acorns at all. And they normally drop in August, which they did, but it wasn't a lot of them. And towards the end of August, once those deer coming out of velvet and those sawtooths were dropping, I got a picture of him, 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, okay, he's alive.
Yep.
So then I scatter the property with text cams. And I'm getting a few pictures of him all in the middle of the night, no rhyme or reason, from one end of the property to the other. And we're talking about 2,200 acres. We're not talking about 60 acres. This is property that my best friend owns, and he lets me treat it like it's mine to bow hunt. I'm very fortunate and lucky to do that. But it's plenty of ground for this deer to live on.
Yeah.
And he is in there, and I'm getting picture after picture after picture of him as the rut starts picking up. Once those scrapes start opening up, I'm getting scrape pictures of him. There's quite a few other guys that hunt down there. There's a lot of feeders. There's a lot of corn piles. And the caretaker, the head caretaker down there, he brings me a picture of the deer and it's like, have you seen this buck? And I was like, yeah, I have seen him, and I am actively hunting him. And he's like, well, I am too. So, and rightly so, right? The family hunts down there some. A lot of the guys that take care of the property hunt. So there's a lot of people hunting down there, and there's, several people hunting this buck, including him, and he's a great dude and shares information. He says that buck has been hitting his corn pile at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and coming through there, and it's no different than what I'm seeing on the scrapes and trails. And so, how do you kill him? Right? He's a nomad. He's not bedding in the same place every night.
Yeah.
Because I get pictures of him at 6 a.m., half a mile from where I got pictures of him at 6 a.m., a week ago. So he's a nomad. He ranges all over the place.
Yep.
He won't come to corn bait in daylight. He completely avoids that. So I said, okay, he is living. It's like what my dad told me when I was little. The bigger deer are going to get in the thickest, nastiest place they can, especially when there's pressure, and you're going to have to kill them on the edge of that. And that was something that he told me when I was 10, 12 years old. Mm-hmm. So just kind of went back to that. There are no funnels. This property, I talk about, around the edge of the duck pond, this fenced in, it forces them certain ways. And I have gotten some pictures. I've got cameras on the edges of those duck ponds, and he does come through there sometimes at night. Mm-hmm. And so my thinking was, okay, I'm going to go in, get super mobile, and take cameras, take my mobile setup, and when I go into a certain area around this cutover to hunt, try to get him coming out or going in, I'm going to hang a camera. I'm going to hunt. I'm going to hunt that day, hunt that afternoon, depending on what I see, break down after the morning hunt, move to another location, put another camera up. And that's pretty much what I have done. Mm-hmm. Nothing has changed, Lucas. Same thing. I'm not seeing him in daylight. I'm not blowing him out of there because I'm still getting pictures of him at night.
That's good.
But he's still, dadgum, Roman is so frustrating because there's some nights he'll go by 6 or 7 different cameras.
My goodness.
But then at 5:30 in the morning, I'll get one last picture of him, and I'm like, okay, he's going back in the cutover. But then the next day, I'll get a 5:30 in the morning picture of him, and he'll be 1,000 yards, half a mile away from the cutover. Like, where's he going?
Yeah.
So I get this 8 a.m. picture of him, and I'm sure he was looking for a doe, or he was with a doe, and I missed. She ran by the camera, and then it was just a fleeting picture of him. 8 a.m. in the morning, so he's after a doe, which makes sense, right? Yep. And that's probably how that deer will get killed. He will end up following a hot doe by a rifle stand somewhere, and a rifle hunter will end up shooting him, or I will be fortunate enough to get him following a doe. But what do you do, right? How do you kill this nocturnal nomad buck? And the way you kill him is you keep your butt in the stand.
Yep.
If I had been in the stand near that camera at 8 a.m.,
you'd have had him.
I'd have had him.
Yep.
Okay, so the key is sitting in nocturnal bucks that aren't on necessarily a bait pile, that you're getting natural travel pictures of those things consistently, that you know he's living on the property that you can hunt.
Yep.
The way you kill them is being mobile, moving from location to location, and stacking the odds in your favor.
Yep.
If you rely on these cameras, you're going to be one step behind always.
Yep.
And that is what I catch myself doing, and a lot of guys doing, is they start hunting through the camera because it is convenient and easy.
Yep.
It's easy to wake up in the morning and go through your text camera pictures, right? Mm-hmm. And say, okay, yeah, he's still coming through at night. I'm not hunting yet. He's still coming through at night. I'm not hunting yet. He's still coming through at night. I'm not hunting yet. Mm-hmm. And then, boom, you get an 8 a.m. picture. Yeah. Well, if I'd been hunting, now I couldn't. I had a work conflict that day, so I couldn't hunt that day. But that is, to me, the key to killing these nocturnal bucks that live on your property. They're moving somewhere in daylight. They're getting up and feeding. Now, if he's living in that, let's call it a 300-acre cutover. Man, it's not that big. Let's call it a 100-acre cutover. There are no trees in there to hang in. There are some giant oaks out in the middle of it that didn't get cut, but there's like 4 or 5, too big to get a stand in. You couldn't get to it. If you walked in that thing, you're going to blow every deer out of there.
Yeah.
So what I am focused on right now is hunting the edge of that cutover. There are some big trails coming out of there with some rubs. I've got cameras hung on them, and, yeah, I've gotten a picture or two of him coming out of there. But it'd be 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
All right, so traditionally you think, okay, he should be going back in there at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
I've yet to get a picture of him going in there at 5:30 in the morning, but they're all around. They're around there. So, and he's not entering it on the same trail every morning.
Yep.
Yeah, I am convinced. Now, like the tracks buck, I'll probably get a picture of him somewhere at some time later in the year once the rut is kind of dwindling down again in South Carolina. I can't tell you when it ends, but when it slows, I'll probably get a picture of him some weird place, and he'll be living right behind a tractor shed or something like that. But that is what I'm going with now, is that he's living in that big cutover, and I'm going to spend my time when I can hunting the trails and the edges and the habitat junctions and the scrapes that are coming out or going in to that big cutover.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep my cameras going. I'm not turning them off, but I'm not letting that can put a negative mindset. The cameras can. They can put a negative mindset in I'm only getting pictures of him at night. I'm not getting any pictures of him. Yeah. This buck will be gone, for gone. That's the wrong word. I won't get any pictures of him for 7 or 8 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, he's been killed. He's across the river. And then boom, I'll get 3 nights in a row of him. I said it earlier, him passing 7 or 8 of my cameras.
Yeah.
And so it can be, it can almost be to the point where you'd want to throw the towel in, but this would be the prize of the season for sure.
Yep.
This buck, for many seasons,
yep.
because I've had so many quote-unquote trail camera encounters with him. Mm-hmm. There's other guys hunting him. There's guys rifle hunting him. There's bait out. There's corn piles. There's feeders. There's food plots. I mean, there's a lot going on. Yeah. A lot of guys with rifles. I mean, if I could get him, it really would be, just absolutely kind of a pinnacle type deer.
Yeah. Because
there's so much going on there, and I don't know if it's that he's so clever or if that's just his nature and what's kept him alive, mm-hmm. constantly moving, constantly changing areas, and then obviously moving at night has kept him alive because nobody hunts down there at night.
Yeah.
Or not that I know of. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Yeah. I'm going to be moving from area to area, and my process is when I go to do that, I'm going to take 1 or 2 trail cameras with me when I go. Mm-hmm. So when I go in to hunt an area, I'm going to drop a camera and drop my stand. Yep. And then I will hunt there depending on what kind of action I get. If I get a bunch of does coming through there, I might stick there for a couple of days.
Yeah.
If they're coming out of that cutover or going in that cutover, I feel like that's a good natural lure for him. If it's dead, if I get nothing, then I'm going to break down and move. I want to keep moving, and normally, I am a rut funnel guy, mm-hmm. where you can have funnels, but here the funnels are so hard. I want to circle back to that for a minute. Some of the areas that I have picked out that I'm going to set up on this giant cutover, they're edges between pines and the cutover. They're edges between pines, hardwoods, and the cutover. And really there's a edge that is cutover, a small block of hardwood and then the actual river. So, and I walked in there thinking, all right, this is going to be ripped up with sign.
Yeah.
And I get in there, and it's a bit of a letdown. Quite a few tracks, some trails, but this whole property doesn't get a lot of rut sign. There's not there's not a lot of rubs.
Yep.
There's some, but there's not a lot. Like we were in Kansas when we walked into that rut funnel we hunted. It was insanity.
Yeah.
Like nothing I've ever seen before. It was like every cedar tree was ripped apart. There were scrapes every 50 feet.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't it. I mean, it was crazy. It was an absolute no-brainer. All we had to figure out was access and wind direction.
Yeah.
And we were gonna eventually kill a buck.
Yep.
We just sit there with that south wind blowing into that river off that bluff. They couldn't smell us, and it was just a matter of time.
Yep.
Here, that ain't the case.
Yeah.
You can walk this whole property and see 15, 20 rubs on 2,200 acres, and there's a few big, deep, gnarly rubs, but most of them are just little saplings because the buck-doe ratio is so messed up. Yep. It's probably – and it's not because of the way they manage this property. They manage this property great. They shoot a ton of does off of it. It's the surrounding properties. There may be – I know of 1,200 acres next door that they'll shoot 10 or 12 bucks on in one doe. And that goes on for years and years and years. And so the buck-doe ratio is way out of hand. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 7 or 9 to 1. So there's no competition.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that hurts with this nocturnal nonsense that this buck is doing, is he knows that he can come out of wherever he is, which I'm going to say is this cutover, at night. He can grab a doe. He can go back in that cutover. Or when these does are ready to be bred, they may be finding him.
Yeah.
Right? They may be coming in the cutover and finding him, and he doesn't have to leave it in daylight because and he doesn't have to fight.
Yeah.
There are I've gotten some trail camera pictures of some fights. We heard that giant buck fight when we were in Kansas in that cornfield, and they were going at it.
Oh,
brother.
yeah.
I mean, it was insane. It was like two guys beating boat paddles. And all we could see was the, movement. We couldn't see how big they were or what they were. But you don't get a lot of that here because the competition is not that great.
Yep.
You're having 2-year-old bucks that are getting in on the action because these mature bucks are getting all the does they want. Now there's a little bit of aggressiveness that goes on, but there's not the competition, which also hurts with them. If like the tracks in Kansas, there's not a huge deer density out there, so you get a lot of rut daytime movement. Yep. I got that giant 8-point coming through that funnel on the tracks multiple times in daylight because he's having to search really hard for does. So that's my philosophy here. I'm going to get to hunt a little bit this week for this buck. Then we're going to funny, I got a 3:30 a.m. picture of him coming out of the cutover, which I was sure this is where he was going in and out. And I got a 3 a.m. picture of him coming out of the cutover, which means he ain't coming out of there right at dark, and he ain't going back in there this morning right at daylight. So, I mean, once again, it just is another what the heck is going on here. But that's going to be my plan for the next few days before we go to Mexico and then we get home from Mexico. That's how I'm going to attack this deer, and obviously we'll keep everybody posted if we get a crack at him or we do start getting some daylight on what happens there. But that's how I'm going to tackle that deer in a southern kind of rut, no funnel, flat, giant hardwoods, river swamp, cutovers, nothing to funnel them down.
Yep.
I'm going to focus on those edges that are coming out of the cutovers, and I'm going to bounce from spot to spot to spot and kind of stack the deck. And the key to it is going to be not relying on the cameras other than knowing that he's still there.
Yep.
And spending time in the tree.
Yep.
I've gotten 0 middle of the day pictures of him. So I'm not going to grind and do all day sits.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit until 10 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm going to get in there at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon and sit till dark.
Yep.
Because there's nothing that has showed me that I need to sit in there all day.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day, even though the rut is going on, he is in that cutover or he is way away from wherever I'm chasing him.
Yeah, no sense in putting more scent in there than you need to.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And no reason to kill yourself until it's time to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Now, if I get some crazy picture him in the middle of the day, then absolutely I will get back in there in the middle of the day, and we'll hunt him all day. Yeah. And the issue with South Carolina is it's kind of winding down.
Yep.
Right? The season is winding down. We go to January 1st.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got a week in Mexico or 2 weeks in Mexico. So that's really going to limit us to about 10, 12, maybe 14 days of actual hunting time that we can put into this buck.
Yep. But
we're going to give it all we got.
Yeah.
Late rut, if I was in the Midwest, you know, I hear lots of guys talk about struggling with rut and the late rut, and that's really now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my buddy Chris Seymour is posting some stuff about it still rolling out there. If you listen to the Don Higgins Rut Report, Thanksgiving week's really good. We're getting to the end of Thanksgiving week. We don't have much longer in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But the key, again, late rut, those big mature deer are looking for those last does, and it is a great opportunity to kill a giant.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's not broken up, but they will be cruising hard. So if you're not completely burnt out and you got any vigor left to get out there and do some all-day sits, the weather's brutal, but, man, can it pay off this time of year. I mean, I certainly don't look forward to this time of year. It means that I've hunted my butt off the entire rut, and I'm going to have to grind late like this.
Yeah.
But this is, you know, around that 7th when the weather's right is normally the best time, but the second best time is now, in my opinion, and what I've experienced in the Midwest is that late rut, because they're really letting their guard down. They're hungry for those last does. They're not able to find them. They know it's coming to an end, and they're searching like mad.
Yeah.
And there's a window from now until really, I mean, it can stretch. You know, you get rifle season in Kansas. It starts around the 3rd of December with still some rut action, but it's going to be tapering out pretty quick, and that'll be the end of it.
Yep.
And then we'll transition into late season hunting, which will be Ohio for us if we're able to do it. Adam and I have a lease up there, and then I've got that 37-acre parcel that Jeff agreed to let me hunt late season as well. So we'll keep an eye on Ohio late season, and we'll get into late season maybe on the next podcast. Maybe we'll get Heath Cisco on next time and let him come in. He's a late season killing machine out of Ohio. He's killed it. They call him the Iceman, and maybe we'll get him on to talk about doing some late season hunting, because I won't say that's his expertise, but he's really good at late season hunting, and you know, with us transitioning into that time of year, that's probably what we'll do on the next podcast. But recap, boys, I'm sorry this is a little shorter than normal, but Lucas and I have got to get back to the office. Bobby Worthington Mission Whitetail course, if you're interested in that, Joe at ASIOgear.com. Email me about that. We've got Mexico hunts coming up. Excited about that. From what I understand, the moisture was good, so they would have made some pretty good horns down there this year, so that's exciting. Going to be hitting that rut, so keep everybody updated with that. Nocturnal bucks, time in the stand. You hear that a lot. Like early season and late season, that is the exact opposite. I'm going to do as little time in the stand as I can. That is 100% ambush. That's a see him in daylight, get in there the next afternoon and kill him, or get out of there. Because they're so patternable. They're hitting the pattern and of bed to food. And so you don't want to upset that pattern if you can. So those are quick strike ambushes. pre-rut, rut, when the weather's right, time in the stand, time in the funnel. You don't have funnels like we don't have here. You got a nocturnal buck. You got a lot of hunting pressure. You got a lot of guys hunting. I mean, you have stacked the deck against you.
Yeah.
But the way to kill him is to spend time in the stand, be mobile, keep moving, and I guess the tactic here is take a camera with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take a camera with you when you go into these mobile setups, because you're hunting the trails and the edges. You know, you're hunting those edges, which quote unquote are the funnel, or those deer like to hit those edges. So that's what you're doing, is you're being mobile. And so drop a camera in there, especially, you know, the text cams. You're already going in and setting up the place to hang your stand. Throw one in there, hide the camera really well with branches, or lay some logs up against them. You know, we've talked about that before. Try to hide them like you're hiding them from a person.
Yeah.
The actual trail camera. And, you know, that's what we're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then don't, you know, it's kind of a catch-22, if you will. We talk about not relying on the camera, but we're using the camera for intel.
Yep.
I guess don't get in the mindset of, I'm not getting daylight pictures on trails, on scrapes, on rubs, on bait, whatever you may have them out there on. Don't get the mindset that I'm not going to hunt because I'm not getting daylight pictures.
Yep.
Right? Still use the cameras, but this time of year, get out and hunt.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to, because our season is winding down.
Yeah.
You know, I'm seeing a lot of posts of, I'm getting burnt out. The grind is killing me. Man, come January 15th in South Carolina, you're going to wish that you grinded a little more.
Yeah.
Because the season's going to be out.
Yeah.
We've got to wait all the way to August before we can get going, or you got to go to a different state.
Yeah.
And hunt. So, stay in the game, stay positive, time in the stand, be mobile, don't let the cameras frustrate you, and keep digging.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally, this time of year, you know, the old saying, you're not going to kill him on the couch. That's very true.
Yep.
Get in the stand and move if you don't have funnels. If you're fortunate and you've got the funnel,
Yep.
you've got the actual funnel, you're in the Midwest, then it's a simple process.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yep.
Right in that funnel.
Yep.
I was texting Bobby this morning, and he's hunted the same dadgum stand for I don't know how many days in a row, and he's had his buck come through there at night. He's got a camera in his funnel, and he's riding in that funnel, and I bet you dollars to donuts he's either going to kill that buck in there, or a rifle hunter or somebody else is going to get him, but he's on him.
Yeah.
So he's rotting in that funnel. So that's it, guys. We appreciate it. Again, if you're interested in that course, email joe@ASIOgear.com. Lucas, you got anything?
Nothing.
All right. Well, we're going to be headed to Mexico Sunday, and we'll be updating everything on Instagram and Facebook, and hopefully we'll get a buck shot down there and be able to celebrate and share it with you guys. Boys, we appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hope you had a good one, and we will talk soon.
Yep.
Thanks, boys.